We don't know any of the details of what was actually discussed at Jeddah. And the Americans and the Ukrainians have actually done a fairly smart thing in conducting diplomacy behind closed doors and discreetly, unlike what we saw President Zelensky try to do in the Oval Office in front of the American media. So everything depends on the details. Now that we're slowly moving towards diplomacy, I doubt that the Russians will accept whatever proposal Witkoff will bring to Moscow, hook, line, and sinker. Neither the Americans nor the Ukrainians, unfortunately for Ukraine, are in a position to impose conditions on the Russians. But the Russians will probably come back with counter proposals, and that's how this will unfold. Ultimately, what the Russians have said consistently over the past several months is that they are looking for a long-term sustainable peace, and that means full negotiations. And so I think that's what they're going to be pushing this towards. If the focus remains on nothing but the ceasefire, I don't think this is going to work out. It is going to have to be linked to negotiations. There seems to be this obsession in the Trump administration with having a ceasefire first and then negotiations, as if they cannot, war and negotiations can't happen simultaneously. This is no one's preference, but look, we've had plenty of examples of this taking place. The Trump administration was negotiating with the Taliban while the war was going on in Afghanistan. The Americans were negotiating with the Vietnamese during the war. And by the way, North and South Korea were negotiating with each other during the Korean War. So the question is the ceasefire going to be immediately accompanied by the opening of peace talks, in which case I think the Russians may agree to it, or is this simply an end in itself? And the Russians have already said that if this is going to be a temporary ceasefire that slows down their progress across the entire front and simply is used to rearm the Ukrainians to restart clashes again a little bit later, they're not going to go for that. So I think we wait for the next 24 to 48 hours to see what comes out of Moscow.